Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tabs on Tap. Hopefully, I sound okay. I'm having some sound issues I was trying to work out. I think I can figure out what's going on here. We have Colonel Joe Adams joining us here shortly for this time. He's actually really joining us for real. Yesterday, I had hoped he would. Here we go. I think I've got it figured out. I don't know what's going on with my sound this morning, but we'll get it straightened out. If you guys can hear me, I guess that's all that matters. Maybe it just sounds strange to me. Good morning, Karen. So Colonel Adams is joining us. It was kind of funny last night. His executive producer Deanna messaged me, and I can't wait to hear Colonel Joe Adams come on today and talk to us. We've got so much to talk about. Of course, he's out doing the good work here, across the state of Missouri, working on storm damage. Can't wait to hear his updates. Lots to talk about today. I mean, it's Friday. I don't know about you guys. I'm glad it's Friday. Even though I work all weekend, I still need a Friday like everyone else. I'm kind of a mess this morning. My hair is a mess. I'm a mess. I haven't even looked at myself yet in the mirror. Like, I don't even care. It's Friday. That's all that matters. Good morning, Glesna. Good morning, Sherry. Glesna, hopefully you're having some decent weather up there in Michigan. I've heard things are pretty rough up that way. And so we're going to pop in here with Colonel Joe Adams. Lots to talk about today afterwards. I just realized for some reason the time on my laptop is wrong. I don't even know how that's possible. And my laptop says it is 6:11 a.m. It's 8:05 a.m. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but some of the things we're going to talk about today, lots of news going on. We'll get to that here in a bit after we talk to Colonel Joe Adams. We're going to go through a tough period. Don't worry about the stock market dropping. It will all be okay. There is some light at the end of the tunnel. So we're certainly going to get to that. Oh, thank you, Sherry. And good morning, Dottie. Well, I got up and I put a little bit of makeup on. I don't wear a lot of makeup. And it's kind of funny, but when the camera makes you look completely different anyway. It adds like 20 pounds. It makes you look puffy. And I've tried to adjust my camera any way I can. I always look all washed out. And trust me, I put on a ton of makeup for the show. Otherwise, I'd look like Casper the Ghost. But even so, it still doesn't look right. And I hate wearing a lot of makeup. I'm one of those people where, I like lip gloss and mascara and stuff like that. If I put too much makeup on, my face just looks dirty and it feels dirty. I hate it. But you just have no choice. I would look like a ghost. You wouldn't even be able to see me here if I didn't put some sort of extra makeup on. We're going to talk today about sourdough. How do you get your sourdough started? I'm starting mine tomorrow, so I hope you are too. Lots of health benefits to sourdough. We're going to talk about soursop. What exactly is soursop and why do you need soursop in your life? We're going to talk about some anti-parasitic protocols because there's a lot of people out there talking. I've got a little video clip I'm going to play from Dr. Artis later. I've been reading these stories, just absolutely miraculous stories of people who have, stage 4 pancreatic cancer and, different people with autoimmune disorders. These days, so many people have autoimmune disorders and the numbers are growing steadily. And I think it's because we're not treating things for what they truly are, which is a parasitic infection and a parasitic, overtake of your body. So we're going to talk about some of these things. I'm going to go through some of the protocols of a couple of the people that I've read about and what they and things I've never even heard talking about parasites. That's how things work. Sherry says for her, it's the browns. Dottie, add an orange filter. Yeah, I have got my settings up to the highest setting I can get to add a little bit of color to me. But it's not good. Look at how white my arm is. And look, it's funny because my arm looks so short and fat. And that is not how my real arm looks. I don't know what to do about the cameras. I guess I need a camera expert to. It just keeps saying connecting, connecting, connecting. And I know exactly what's happening. What's happening is that when you start talking about parasites, the system wants to go down. Got a couple more minutes. We'll have Colonel Joe Adams popping in on us. And I'll tell you what. Did you see that in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams, of course, he had the charges dropped against him. The entire case just dropped. And now he has decided he's leaving the Democrat Party. Really? Did it really take this long to decide you need to leave the Democrat Party? Because guess what happened? Good morning, Adrian. When Joe Biden got a little upset, of course it wasn't Joe Biden, it was whoever was holding the auto pen that week, got a little upset because Mayor Eric Adams was actually maybe tired of the crime in New York City. He might have just been a little bit tired of his city being overran by illegals. And he thought maybe he would step up and try to do the right thing. And of course, what happens? Democrats come after him and they try to charge him with a bunch of ridiculous charges, as is common in the Democrat world. And he's finally waking up and saying, okay, this is what my own party did to me because I want my city to be safer, because I want the illegals out of my city, out of these hotels that they have taken over. And that we know how it works, doesn't it? We know exactly how it works, don't we? It is absolutely insane. And Jay says Adams is still liberal. Yeah, yeah, absolutely so. I don't think he's going to come over and join us by any means on the conservative side of things. But he is allegedly saying he is leaving the Democrat Party. So I think that's wonderful news. And I don't know what's going on with my laptop today. It just popped up to 8:10. It said 6:11 like 2 minutes ago. Now all of a sudden it's come to the right time. Who knows? But either way, we're going to have Colonel Joe Adams joining us. I'm going to bring him into the show here. It looks like he's up and ready. Happy to talk to him this morning. Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. Good morning, Colonel Adams. How are you doing this morning, and how have you been spending your week after the storms? I see him. I'm not sure if he sees us or can hear us. Can you hear us, Colonel Adams?
I got you. I copy.
All right. How are you doing today?
Good. Got a little break in the weather to get some yard work done today, so it should be a good day. Before we start, I want to make a comment. I saw on the news this morning that there's these twin boys, and one of the twins is running a track meet, and then the other team, somebody from the other school stabbed him in the heart and killed him at a track meet. Of course, the kid was black that stabbed the white boy. So I speculate to probably come from a fatherless home. I mean, here's the thing. I ran track in high school and in college. Who brings a knife to a track meet? I mean, that is a symbol and an indicator of what's going on in this country. I mean, it really is. Who brings a knife to a track meet? Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. So, what do you got on your mind, Tabitha?
To relate to that story, I read about that the other day, and it's really sad because they were two identical twin brothers, and they were both there at the track meet. And what happened is at the track meet there was a tent set up for each individual team, and we had one individual who was at a different school who was sitting under the tent of the 17-year-old who was later stabbed. And when he was mouthing off, the kid was, and so the 17-year-old asked him, hey, you in your own tent, go wait in your own tent and blah blah blah. Well, then they got into a little bit of a altercation, as far as a verbal altercation, and the next thing you know, this kid brings a knife out and stabs him literally right in the heart. I mean, it is unbelievable where this world has gone. The fact that there is absolutely zero respect for life, absolutely zero respect. And Colonel Adams, one thing I wanted to ask you about very quickly is that yesterday I played a video. It was a video about Texas, near Josephine, Texas. There's a 402-acre complex where they've built a mosque and a town around it, and they're going to have their own schools, probably their own police departments, their own grocery stores, an entire complex. And the residents around Josephine, Texas, are really upset because, of course, the mosque is playing their Islamic prayer 5 times a day throughout the speakers, which echoes all around, the area. They have several speakers through this complex, and they're trying to get other Islamic minded people to move to this 402-acre complex. And I was explaining to people yesterday that I am absolutely convinced that they're going to be living under Sharia law. They're going to have their own police force. Why aren't we doing anything to stop these no-go zones?
Yeah, I had that discussion with the city council here in Washington and confronted them. They had with that mosque in Texas, the same thing's happening in the city of St. Louis. They're so desperate for population because everybody's booking out that they actually went to over in Europe and recruited Muslims to move into the city of St. Louis. They got their own chamber of commerce. I have sources down there work the area, paramedics, and it's horrible what they're doing in the city of St. Louis, but they're that desperate for people. So there was not a round table, but if you were running for office, they had an open night sponsored by We the People. Town hall. Town hall. Okay, my producer says town hall. So what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to write a question, then hand it to the table. Then the table gives it to the spokesperson, and she's on the platform and directing these questions at these people running for office. And so I've been known to, anyway, so instead of me writing a message to the board and then them passing it up to the lady with the microphone, I just walked up on the stage and took the microphone and I asked everybody there. And of course they said, well, no, this is not procedure. You're supposed to write that. I said, I don't have time for that. So I asked each one of the persons running for office, would they, if a permit come across their desk and to build a mosque in Franklin County, would they vote yes? And every single one of them, I think there was 8. Every single one of them says that if they meet all the criteria and it's necessary to build a mosque, yes, we would do that. And I said, well, why? I said, why would you do that? These people are the invasion's on. These people are not good for the community, and they hate us, and they want to implement Sharia law. And you're going to say they could build a mosque here? I said, well, that's not going to happen. And I said, oh, so I asked each one of them, why would you sign off and allow them? They said, well, we would have to, because if we didn't, it would be discriminating against a religion. I said, so and that was a setup. So I said, do you consider Islam a religion? And every single person at that table in that town meeting said yes. I said, well, it's not a religion, it's an ideology, and it's destructive to the American people and the American way and what US stands for. But they said that they would do the same thing. So these people in Texas don't have any choice, because if they meet the criteria, they build a mosque, because they're still defining Islam as a religion and don't see the dangers behind it. They know they're doing wrong. So what I wanted to do, I wanted to get one of those people on that town meeting to say, even if it's if it's the legal thing to do, I wouldn't sign off on it. And none of them would say that, because they would lose their job if they didn't sign off on it and get sued. So anyway, that's what we're dealing with. They're using the Constitution.
They are, and you're right. Right here in the city of St. Louis, they have that Islamic center. It's right just south of the Arch. And they brought in at one point, like, what was it, 20,000? Was it 20,000 Afghans? That's what it was, into that area, who are still there. Most of us have to live by certain building codes where you could only have 1-2 people per bedroom, but they're allowed to have 15, 16, 20 people in one small home. They have different rules than the rest of us.
They're also going to use their own. They're in a process of changing currency in the city of St. Louis. So the Afghan community in that area that they're moving into, they've opened their chamber of commerce, and the word is from my sources down there, my paramedics that work the area, that they're in the process of creating their own currency. They're going to use Afghan currency and keep the money within their own Afghan branch of a bank or whatever. But they're setting up Islamic State right in the city of St. Louis, because basically but people don't understand the threat. So anyway, that's the city of St. Louis. They deserve what they get. Period. Anyway, so
Also,
yeah,
also true. But but
they
Colonel
can't
Adams,
even, they can't even manage their police department. So
no, and that's why the state, of course, taking over the police department. But what I don't understand is why here in the great country of America, we cannot stop the no-go zones. I mean, why is it that we have any subset of the population who's allowed to block off certain areas and say no police are allowed here? No other, no non-Muslims are allowed to come in this area. We're going to live in this piece of property by Sharia law. We should ban Sharia law, but it doesn't happen.
no, they're just that desperate for revenue. So that's what they're doing. Typical St. Louis city politics. They don't have a clue. And that's because they continue to vote for the wrong person for the wrong reason. So I guess that the mayor is going to be defeated in the city of St. Louis. And why that white lady would even want to be a mayor down there, I have no idea. But
Well, she's no better. Kara Spencer is no better than
yeah.
Tashora Jones. Kara Spencer is a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. I've interviewed her before. I've talked about her before in the past, and while we might think any change is a better change, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, they just changed the sign. So, but I don't have anything to do with St. Louis city politics. Anyway, no-go zones. Well, I consider the city of St. Louis an entire no-go zone, even with the sports and everything else. I advise my people do not go to the city of St. Louis. It's a lost cause because of the people that run the show down there. So,
Based on the
and
turnout at the Cardinal games, I think everyone agrees with you. I saw a photo the
yeah,
other day of the Cardinals game, and there's, a smattering of people. There's
yeah.
no one there. Absolutely no one.
I told you before, back in 1982 World Series, I there was some rumors going around that there were going to be riots outside after the event, racial riots, and so I actually took a machine gun with me to the Cardinal game. I don't think you can do that now because of the
No.
metal detectors. Yeah, I took a machine gun and an extra magazine, so if they want to. If they were going to screw with me, I got news for them. I'll spread their brains from here to White Plains. Anyway, that was 1982, a long time ago. Of course, I wouldn't do that in today's world, since I'm a public figure now. Hey, we had a good time with Jamie Allman the other day on his show. Thank you, Allison. It would appear that Allison is my new booking agent. Thank you, Allison. And we had such a good time. At one point, I said to Jamie on the air that Jamie's got more balls than brains. So I'm getting a lot of feedback on that. He's a good guy.
I really like Jamie a lot. He has a fantastic show. I hope everyone tunes in. His new time is noon. Is it noon to 2, I believe, for the Allman Report? And I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I was the guest. We were the guest. We could go Thursday at the Lincoln Reagan banquet, Republican banquet. It was held out here in Washington, Missouri, and I attended. And they had, all the politicians were there, and Brown was there. Everybody speaking. It was a really well held event. It was packed. Out there at that Triple Tree, is it Triple Tree Winery?
Yeah, that's a nice place.
Yeah, where we have our banquets once a year. So it was real nice. And then all of a sudden, it was Ann Wagner's turn to speak. Well, I can't stand Ann Wagner, and I'll tell you why. So when Ann Wagner came on, I left the table, went outside, and smoked my cigar until she was finished. So I didn't hear one word out of her mouth. So I call her Ann Do Nothing Wagner because she doesn't do anything. So years ago, when I was with Border Patrol years ago, during the Obama administration, I met with Ann, and I tried to convince her to come to the border and do some private interviews with some of my Border Patrol friends about how Obama is gutting the Border Patrol and hindering their work, which is dangerous because of the illegals coming in. And she refused to come to the border. way
That's
before.
crazy.
Oh yeah, during Obama, she did nothing, and I give her an open invitation, and she refused to come down there. And I explained the problem, and she still refused. So I call her Ann Do Nothing Wagner, and she doesn't do anything.
It's a shame. I door knocked with Ann Wagner, several years ago, and with the local Republican Party, with I can't remember what they called themselves at the time, but the one of their RNC offices that myself and some friends volunteered for, and that was our duty that day, was to go out with Ann Wagner and door knock. And I'll tell you what, she was a very nice person. She's a very nice person, but that doesn't make her a good politician, and I really hate it that she has not done more for her constituents. And I'm kind of surprised that the Central Committee would even invite her to speak at that Lincoln dinner, quite honestly. And that's a big honor to be held, and I don't think she deserves it.
The other politicians were there. Of course, everybody's coming up and shaking my hand and introducing themselves and talking about the Washington Guard and the work we do out here. And they were surprised she even showed up, because they have events all over the state, and she didn't show up. So, and Do Nothing Wagner. Donald Trump said something, and everybody heard it, but I think you need to understand this. And this is about those judges across the country, the progressive judges put in by Biden. Well, Donald Trump's got a way of saying things that's just absolutely hit the nail on the head. And when he said, I don't know about these judges, I got 80 million votes, and I'm president of the United States. They didn't get one vote. They're in an appointed position. That says it all right there.
That's right.
How can these judges get in the man's way who got 80 million votes?
And it's going to continue.
Yeah.
Colonel, I played a video from Hakeem Jeffries a couple weeks ago that said that's the Democrat plan, is they have instituted these very liberal judges all across the country, and if just for this purpose, just in case Donald Trump won, or someone like Donald Trump won, so that to make his presidency completely ineffective. But they're going to learn. This is only April 4th. So they're going to quickly learn that, we're going to have a better control on this than they think. We're going to get rid of these judges. We're going to make their motions absolutely meaningless, because Donald Trump is not going to be stopped, especially not by these district judges. Not going to happen.
Donald Trump's the first president in 50 years who makes great deals for America and Americans, not for himself or the political party, period. And look what they're doing to the man. The same thing. They won't stop. But I still say the only way to stop him is to kill him, and I hate to have to say that, but that's true. He's going to continue on.
And they're very angry right now over, of course, these tariffs. Did you know the Senate, by the way, passed a bill to stop the tariffs against Canada? Now, why would they do this? Now, of course, it's never going to pass the House, so it doesn't really matter. But it's absolutely crazy. Look, Colonel Adams, how great these tariffs are already working for us. What is it, Ford? They're going to give all Americans employee pricing until June. General Motors, they're going to build more trucks in Indiana, give overtime to their workers, and hire thousands of people. It's already working. We're already seeing great things.
And of course, the Democrats hate it, and they hate Donald Trump's winning for America. The other problem is, I talked to a lady yesterday. She's 87 years old, and all she wanted to talk about was how corrupt our government, our politicians, and the judges are. Now, here's an 87-year-old woman that it's common acceptance now that we know Congress is corrupt, the judges are corrupt. I'm just to talk about it is kind of scary. And people have to understand that all of the chaos and all the different levels in this country is created by the Democrats.
Yes.
100% of all the problems in this country right now is the Democrats. We ought to arrest them, try them, and deport all of them. And that includes some of the Republicans too, but the entire Democratic Congress passing these policies and getting in Donald Trump's way, they hurt America, and they don't care.
They don't. And they're using your money to do it.
So it's okay for they find the corruption and all the money laundering, and that's okay. That's what they're saying. It's okay. That's the way we do business. Well, Donald Trump says no, nay, nay. We're going to change things. So, God bless him. He's our only hope. Without him, we're screwed.
No question about it. And let's just, like you said, let's add the Republicans in the mix because, as the Trump administration and the Department of Doge, while Elon Musk is still with us just for a few more days, while they delve into the background of Congress members and how they became so incredibly wealthy, I think we're going to find out a lot about the Republicans in Congress as well. Because Colonel Adams, I don't think I have to tell you that even the Republicans in Congress are pretty darn quiet right now, aren't they? They are not saying a peep because they know they're just as guilty.
Follow the money. They've got to do it. Follow the money. I was walking through the house, and we keep the TV on all the time for the news updates. And I saw, I think it was Fox. It might have been Fox. Maybe it was MSNBC, the comic channel. So Kamala Harris recently did a speaking at some function. I don't know what the function was, and she was speaking, and of course she come off as a cackling idiot. I mean, and she's talking about this is a candidate for presidency, by the Democrats. That's the best they could do, and he's another joke. So I'm standing there watching her speak, laughing and playing with her hair, and just acting like a total idiot. Now, she was a candidate for president of the United States. Could you imagine Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Roosevelt, Lincoln, Reagan, standing there like a blooming idiot as president of the United States, acting like Kamala Harris? What a joke. That's how lost they are. That's the best they got. Incredible.
They just had to throw someone up there, and they needed it to be a female. They needed it to be a person of color. That's all it was. There was absolutely nothing more to it than that.
Yeah, and that's how much they care about this country, to put up a blooming idiot like that as a candidate and think that people are going to vote for her. Well, guess what? It backfired. And when they lost the election, all these other things have surfaced, how really corrupt and ludicrous the Democratic Party really is. I'm telling you, they keep talking about, Donald Trump's going to be a dictator. We're working towards dictatorship. Okay. But I'll make this statement. I support the United States and liberty and our military. There's nothing wrong with a good dictator. Really, there's nothing wrong with a great dictator. There's nothing wrong with a great emperor. I say they make Donald Trump an emperor for 1 year on paper and let him have total say to do the right thing and straighten this country out. That'll never happen, but I mean it. If you look at the former king of Thailand, was a great person. He was king. He had total say. Where he screwed up was he organized a parliament and turned it over to the people. Big mistake. They haven't been the same since. There's nothing wrong with a good king, a good dictator, or a good emperor.
Look at Gaddafi. Gaddafi was fantastic for his country, and that's exactly why they took him down.
A lot less paperwork and politics when you've got a good emperor. So anyway, Donald Trump for emperor. I should get a shirt that says it. Donald Trump for emperor. We need to deport him and prosecute him and get rid of him, but that's not going to happen. But I tell you what, these Democrats, they keep going. I mean, people are seeing right through it, and even their own people. This is all about power and greed and money. Now it turns out money laundering. And also, I've yet to see FEMA pop their heads out here in Franklin County. Has anybody seen any kind of FEMA people around after the storm damage?
I haven't even heard about FEMA.
I got a call. I got a call last week from one of the types in FEMA. Of course, he hates FEMA. He's a supervisor at high level, and even he calls FEMA nothing but a money laundering operation. And he said he should be coming to St. Louis because of tornadoes, but he hasn't called me back since. Has anybody out there seen FEMA with all this damage? Where is FEMA? I haven't seen any of it.
heard of any reports of them being around. There was tornado damage in my area, nothing compared to what there was in Potosi or what took place in parts of Arkansas and Tennessee, where they just have absolute devastation. Parts of Tennessee, there are still people missing. Just unbelievable. Not a
Well,
word.
I had a strange experience yesterday. I went through over at Villa Ridge where they really got nailed.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we've been working over there ever since the tornado, the day after the tornado. A weird situation. So I went down these side streets that I knew were heavily hit. And of course, all the debris from the streets, the county come in and even sub some of the work out to private tree contractors to remove them. And that's all done. And that's it. So I stopped a few people and talked to them. I go, what's going on? There's some kind of weird atmosphere over there. So nothing's changed in Villa Ridge. Houses destroyed, people are out of their homes, people living in homes they shouldn't be living in. Electricity's back on, yeehaw. But it's really weird. You'd think there would be a lot of activity over there, especially through FEMA and stuff, to help these people. Nothing is being done. It's like at a standstill. Very strange.
You'd think FEMA, the Red Cross, all these folks who take an awful lot of money, out of your tax dollars to be out helping people. But, they don't want to come to God's country, do they? You're not going to see them in Missouri anytime soon.
They're not here. They're not here.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
We're on our own. We're on our own. So
God forbid they might see a Trump sign.
Yeah. So I always wear my Trump stuff over there. So no, it's Trump country, but nothing's being done. It's very, very strange. Strange atmosphere. It just felt weird. Nothing's being done. And when I do my speaks, the number one thing that we promote with the Washington Guard is the fact that sometimes, someplace, it's going to happen to you. You're going to be on your own. 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 days. Well, yeah, 10 days. These people are still on their own. Nobody's helping them.
And now we have more storms coming through sometime tonight. I don't expect them to be as severe, but I did read that there will be some storms coming through later tonight. Now, I read this early this morning. It may or may not be, how severe those storms might be. Of course, I don't know. Pretty severe down in Texas. They've been hit with some just really crazy weather, down there. I know my area, we've got, flooding is the big problem right now, Colonel Adams. As you've probably heard, historic flooding to take place, especially down in the Boot Heel, down into Tennessee, into Kentucky. They say it's going to be really bad. There's already been dozens of water rescues because people just don't listen. They see a little puddle and they decide to try to drive through it. And next thing you know, guess what? They're floating down, a waterway. People lose their lives every single year from driving into places they shouldn't be.
Well, it happened to me. The closest I ever come to drowning was in the desert. So I understand how fast it can come in. We had set up an ambush one night for a large group of illegals coming in, and I was in a wash, and mountains out there, they could be raining in behind one mountain and you don't even see it. And I looked down and there's a trickle of water running between my feet down this wash, and I went, uh-oh. So it must be raining behind us. And within 2 minutes, water come over down that mountain pass and wiped out our position. We couldn't find the roads. I mean, it's the closest I ever come. So it happens fast. But I actually got caught in that situation. So my saying is, the closest I ever came to drowning was in the middle of the desert. People don't understand what I'm talking about. I'm going out. She's not here now. She has to take her mother to the doctor or something. My producer's not here, so I'm going to tell you something. So Deanna is shooting in her first professional shooting competition a week in 2 weeks, and so she just finished her NRA certified instruction course. She's now a certified NRA instructor. So for the final qualification, you had to shoot a certain perfection, right? Of course, she outshot everybody in the class, and she outshot the instructor. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so she's ready. I took her new competition gun into the gun shop yesterday to get some final work done on her. So she has gone professional. As of in 2 weeks, she's going to have her first match. I mean, she's something else. So,
That's so exciting.
you know,
Congratulations to Deanna.
yeah, you know what I've done here, and we've talked about it before, the fact that I'm a lot older than my wife, and she's going to be on this planet a lot longer than me. So what I've done is I've taken the time over the period of years now to help her with skills. Now, I got her a new compound bow for Christmas. Now she's shooting bow, which is right off the bat, she's great with it. She's an expert marksman in all the weapons, all the small arms, and the medical background with the Washington Guards training. So what I'm doing, I'm actually, preparing my wife to be on her own once I'm gone.
I
So
love
that's,
it.
yeah, I really, and she loves it. Now this is a woman who I met who's never fired a gun before. Now she's an NRA certified instructor and can outshoot the most of the best people out there. When we shoot at the Washington Guard training, well, guess who's always first? Her. her, her.
I love to hear all of this. Congratulations to Deanna. That is so exciting. I can't wait next week for you to give us a little update about it. That is, I knew you had something going on this weekend, so I'm glad you brought that up.
I
Congratulations,
tell,
Deanna.
tell you what I'll do. I hope she doesn't listen to this podcast later. I'll do some filming of her shooting at the competition. It's combat. It's moving, running, and shooting. If you ain't shooting, you ought to be reloading anyway. So I'll send you a video clip of her, and you can
Thank
play it on
you.
your show and really embarrass her.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh my, not, oh, I don't think it'll embarrass her. She'll be winning that competition. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Well, I told her, I said, now look, it's a game of nerves. The calmest person in the event is going to win. And I said, if you watch the people who walk up to the line to shoot and they're standing with their hands and the hands are doing this, they're gone. So not to put any pressure on you, Deanna, but when we go to this event, we've trained hard for this. When you go to this event, and if you don't win, if you don't finish first, I'll kill you. So don't you dare embarrass me after all this work. And she goes,
The
oh yeah,
pressure's
thanks.
on.
No pressure there, right? So anyway, we'll have fun. I got to run. I got some phone calls to make, and God bless everybody. God bless our President Donald Trump. And I'll give you some results of the shooting competitions, but we're still training.
I
Uh,
can't wait.
yeah, I appreciate it. Allison, thanks for getting me on Jamie Allman. She actually called Jamie and said you need to get Joe on there and talk about the aftermath of the tornadoes. So thanks, Allison.
I'm very
People,
happy for that.
love you to death. I guess I'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Thank you, Colonel Adams of the Washington Guard. So thank you so much for joining us, Colonel Adams. We will talk to you next week. Be safe this weekend. Give Deanna our best and have a great day on top of it. So it's Colonel Joe Adams joining us with the Washington Guard. So happy to have him on. If you want to reach out to the Washington Guard, you can do that at thewashingtonguard.com. That is the way to reach them. And always happy to have Colonel Joe Adams on with us. He's always, not only entertaining, but has so much amazing information. I love to hear that his wife, Deanna, is now an NRA. Think about that, an NRA instructor, shooting instructor. I love it. And I'm going to make my way out there. I'm going to do it. I'm going to come out and see these guys one day when they're having one of their musters. It's a pretty good drive for me, but well worth it. And sorry, I'm trying to, there we go, move my comments around. Allison setting that meeting up with Jamie Allman. Catch Jamie Allman show. He's on at noon. The Allman Report, Monday through Friday, over at Real Talk STL. Great station, by the way. If you're looking for some alternatives to listen to, that is a good place to start. That's for sure. So lots more to talk about. We'll be catching up with Colonel Joe Adams on next week on Wednesday, provided everything goes well. Things have been a little crazy lately with the weather and everything else that's taking place. They've been very, very busy, just like he said, out in Villa Ridge helping with storm cleanup. And now we might have some storms coming through late tonight. Hopefully nothing too crazy. There's just a couple more things I want to run through. One of them, and then we're going to talk about making your sourdough. I'm going to go over some protocols for some folks who had the big C word and were able to use an anti-parasitic protocol to completely rid themselves of disease. And I've got to be very careful with my wording, but I'm going to go and share these two different protocols with you that have a lot of commonalities between them. I've got a couple videos to show. One of Dr. Artis talking about autoimmune disease and how it's parasitic in nature. I've got one with a gentleman who had pancreatic cancer and what he did to help himself out a little bit. It truly miraculous, quite honestly. But a couple things to talk about before we get there. I hope you guys are ready to go out and prepare your sourdough this weekend. That's going to be everybody's homework assignment, is to get your sourdough started, because most people say, well, it's so hard to cut out sugar and carbs because I, really like bread. Everything's fine in moderation, even sugar, fine in moderation, tiny bits. But if you're going to eat some type of bread, choose sourdough, and you can make so many things out of it. We're going to talk about that. We already talked about New York City, of course. Mayor Eric Adams, if I can talk about that, Eric Adams deciding that he is now going to leave the Democrat Party. No surprise there. It doesn't mean he's joining us over on our side, just leaving them. And here's something that's kind of crazy. Zelensky. How did Zelensky end up having $1.6 billion to invest in platinum mining? Very interesting developments. Oh, Georgia says her daughter's an NRA instructor training ladies to shoot in our area. Well, I love to hear that, Georgia. That is absolutely fantastic. Good morning, Scott. So think about this. Zelensky, okay? The same Zelensky you're definitely thinking of. He's preparing for retirement because he's out. As soon as this deal is reached, Donald Trump said he was going to create a ceasefire. He's going to create a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia before August. Before August. What in the world am I talking about? Before Easter. I don't know. I've got August on my mind for some reason. Before Easter. And so he's only got a few days to go. He's got to be really in overdrive. We have Zelensky. He just purchased a stake in a platinum mine. It's called Northam Platinum, and that's in South Africa. He paid $1.6 billion for his share in this platinum mining company. Now, where did he come up with $1.6 billion? Well, I think you know. I think we paid him that money, no question about it. Somewhere back before, right when this war first started, I had read that Zelensky was worth about 44 billion. Now, magically, he's worth about 60 something billion plus. And I think we know through all the little dirty dealings that have taken place in Ukraine for decades, this is not new. As a matter of fact, I would propose that it started in 2014, wouldn't you? The date that the pardons go back to, which by the way, Donald Trump's attorney, Ed Martin, is investigating those pardons that Joe Biden wrote for not only Hunter, who just lost his law license, as you probably heard just this week, but he's investigating, was Biden mentally capable, mentally sound enough to agree to these pardons, not only for Hunter Biden, but for the rest of the Biden family, not to mention some of the other pardons that took place. I do feel that those pardons are going to be challenged, specifically now that we're hearing that they were signed with one of the auto pens. So I absolutely expect that to happen. Oh, Scott, that's so funny. Zelensky made his money from his comedy. You can only make so much money using your genitals to play piano. Jay Van Brown, oh, that's insider trading. Probably so. And Mr. Parnell, super simple to make a start. Oh, yeah, it gives healthy bacteria the body needs. Yeah, so we're going to talk. I'm going to give you the first couple steps how to make a sourdough starter here in just a few minutes. Just like we were talking about with Col Joe Adams a few minutes ago. Yes, things are crazy right now. The stock market bottoming out. Just what was it yesterday morning? The S&P 500 was down. I think it was 3% in the first 4 minutes. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. But you know what? Most Americans aren't even invested in the stock market anyway. Who's it really going to hurt the most? And I really do still think that Donald Trump is trying to do a reset on the stock market. I think everything he does is with intent. We've just got to wait it out and see the process, as you guys know. But like we were just talking about with Col Adams, some of the light at the end of the tunnel, Ford, again, giving employee pricing on all vehicles until June. That is a really fantastic deal if you don't know, because we all know the price of vehicles right now is sky high. General Motors, they're expanding their truck production in Indiana. They're going to hire potentially thousands of workers, could be hundreds, but they're saying thousands. And they're going to, increase their overtime for their current employees. That's a pretty good win right there. It's going to happen. And these are the things we're going to see. Now, in the meantime, it's going to hurt. China just imposed another reciprocal tariff against us at 34%. Of course, French President Macron, who's a criminal himself, he advised all French companies to stop investing in the United States, to halt all investments in the United States. Let them. Just let them. Take Russia as an example. There was a time when Russia was doing very poorly, if you guys recall. There was a time when they were really struggling economically. And guess what happens? Now their unemployment rate is at the lowest it's ever been. The ruble reached an all-time high not too long ago. They're backing their ruble with gold. Things are just turning around. Their unemployment rate is, very, very small compared to what it once was. And why? Because they finally got tough and they said, you know what, all you different countries that want to sanction us, go ahead and sanction us. We will become self-sufficient. We will no longer buy your products. We will no longer import your products into our country, and we will learn how to do it ourselves. And that's exactly what happened. Whenever Switzerland decided not to sell them Swiss cheese as part of a sanction, guess what? Putin decided to open his own cheese factory. Now they make their own Swiss cheese, which some say is far better than the other Swiss cheese that was being imported in. When McDonald's withdrew, guess what? They created their own version of McDonald's. They have made do, and they've become stronger and healthier because of it. And, same thing with their immigration over in Russia. They got to a point where they said, that's enough. We're not allowing illegals into our country. If you're here in our country now, guess what? You're leaving. And guess what happened? They became a stronger country. So we have to see the light at the end of the tunnel because it is there. It is there, and we are absolutely going to see it. I know we don't have a lot of time left, so I want to jump into some of the. Oh, by the way, before I get to the parasite protocol, the sourdough, and everything else, did you see we talked yesterday, and we've talked many days about geoengineering the weather modification. And we kept saying, well, okay, well, we know Robert Kennedy Jr. wants to do away. He wants to make it illegal, chemtrails illegal. He hadn't really talked as much about weather modification. Well, DeSantis, Florida is going to be the place to go. And no income tax, no personal property tax. DeSantis, of course, the governor of Florida, has now stated he is going to ban geoengineering and weather modification across the state of Florida. Now, how that exactly works, I don't know. Will it lessen the hurricane damage that comes through? How exactly is weather modification and geoengineering affecting Florida as it is? And whenever you ban it for a certain state, doesn't really have that much of an impact, because if the states surrounding that state are also using weather modification and weather geoengineering, so we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But does that mean there's going to be no more chemtrails over Florida? I'll be very interested to see how DeSantis lines his entire plan out, what exactly it means for Floridians. But I'll tell you what, no chemtrails, no income tax, no personal property tax, beautiful, beautiful water, sandy beaches. I think maybe it's time to make a move if things continue on the path they're continuing on. Sounds pretty darn good to me. So some of the things that I've been reading about that I want to share with you guys, it's pretty amazing to me, quite honestly. And I know some people probably are tired of me talking about this health stuff, but I'll tell you what, you don't even have to have anything wrong with you. You can feel perfectly healthy, think that your body's in perfect condition. But why not just start a little bit of a protocol so that somewhere down the line, something doesn't happen? Don't wait. Don't wait until it happens. Don't wait until you don't feel well and you have to go and make some doctor appointments and you get some bad test results. Don't wait. It's not worth it. And we're all getting older every single day. We certainly don't age backwards. Our bodies continue to age, and everything we've put in our body all those years, could potentially come back to haunt us. And I've been kind of doing the deep dive into some of these different, I'm trying to be very careful with my words because it will take nothing for them to take me down. Absolutely nothing. I've been reading about all these different, ingredients and remedies people are using. And I've believed, and I still believe for a very long time now, no one has to convince me of this, that most of our ailments are parasitic in nature. We've talked about that a lot. I'm not going to be talking about it every day, going forward. Maybe on Fridays or on certain days, we're going to have some segments about some health things, or if it's, breaking news, something along those lines. But something I want to talk about, I'm going to show you this video, first of all, from Dr. Artis. Everybody knows who Dr. Artis is. I don't have to tell you. He's talking about autoimmune disease and what he has found in autoimmune disease to be parasitic. And then we're going to listen to another video of a man who, I believe it was stage 4 pancreatic cancer, I believe is what he had. And then it spread to, I think, his kidneys. And he ended up in a pretty bad predicament there, and what he, ended up doing to kind of fix that situation. So first, we're going to hear a little bit about from Dr. Artis.
70% of all autoimmune cases I've ever seen in my practice are actually caused by parasites. All of them. We're talking rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, fibromyalgia, Sjogren's. There was always an underlying parasitic cause. Just so y'all know too, if you want to know something very interesting, 50% of all cancerous tumors, polyps that I was ever seen in my patients in my practice actually weren't cancer. They were actually parasitic egg sacs, misdiagnosed as cancerous tumors. If you want to know just how huge the misdiagnosis of cancer for parasites is, look at every research study published that ivermectin cures certain cancers. Ivermectin is an anti-parasitic drug specifically, but it's being used around the world to combat and cure all types of cancers. You want to know why that works? Because most of them are parasites. Well, if you knew they were parasites, you wouldn't need chemotherapy and radiation to cure or treat cancer patients in these cancer institutions all around America. If you never taught the oncologist to look for parasites as the cause, or that the cancerous tumor or mass you're looking at is actually parasitic egg sacs, if you never got that training, you wouldn't even know that was a possibility. So if you never acknowledge that, you would never know that there are cheap alternatives to kill parasites and remove them from the human body, all naturally even, versus having to use chemotherapy and radiation to.
So what do you think? I couldn't possibly agree more than what Dr. Artis just said. You hear about anti-parasitic cleanses and this type of thing, and how that affects the big C word, but you don't hear it as much about autoimmune disease. But it makes sense because it gets rid of inflammation. Parasitic infestations cause a lot of inflammation, and there's no question that sugar feeds it. And that's why we hear so much about intermittent fasting, so much about carnivore diets, so much about low, keto diets, low carb diets. And Robert says absolutely 100%. Mike Bell, ivermectin, fenbendazole, I know I'm not saying that very well, will cure, oh gosh, I just said the word I wasn't supposed to say, stage 4 cancer. Abe, so would it be beneficial to take that in a preventive way? Absolutely so. And that's exactly what we're getting ready to talk about. Ken Lee, hey, my friend. Yep. Oh, you flew a 13-year-old cancer patient to the Cleveland Clinic. I'm so happy to hear that. Ken Lee, of course, former pilot of Marine One under George Bush and Ronald Reagan. We're going to get him on the show eventually. So I'm going to show you one more clip of a man, sharing his story about what happened to him. And then I'm going to read 2 different protocols that 2 different people used in their fight against parasitic infestation, which caused them to have the C word, in which they went through radiation and chemotherapy to try to prevent. And in the end, what actually did work for them.
Let's do it. Stuff. Okay. So first of all, I just saw that you had cancer and beat it with fenbendazole for, parasites. And that's one of the things that I took for a while. I'm curious, what got you onto that? Can you give a little background on that story?
Yeah, sure. It was kind of a wild story. I mean, it happened, let's see. So I was diagnosed, I started having some issues and couldn't quite figure out what was wrong. And finally was diagnosed in the summer of 2019. Instead of taking sort of a traditional path, which is my way, I decided, you know what, I got to go connect with God. And so I went to Spain and walked 500 miles on the Camino de Santiago. Came home and was sick as a dog. I shouldn't have gone, but I did. And I came back and started going through all the treatments. You know, they gave me the drugs, they gave me the radiation, I went through surgery, and it just wasn't going away. And they kept detecting new things, and it had metastasized a little bit. And they did a biopsy in May of 2021, and it had spread to my kidneys. And so I was like, oh man, this isn't good. Just happened to run into a lady that's a surgeon friend of mine. She's like, man, I can't prescribe this to you. I can't even tell you to do this. Just go look at this website. Less than a day later, John, I was in. And then I kind of learned there were some other things you needed to do. Like I had already been doing intermittent fasting. And so if you starve your body of carbs, that's supposed to help cancer. And so I was already doing some of those things. I was supposed to go back in for some follow-up stuff. They wanted to do another biopsy. They wanted to see how fast this thing was moving, and then they were going to make some decisions. And you know, I was expecting surgery or whatever. So I'm taking this stuff, you know, following the protocol, taking my zinc and taking my vitamin C and doing my intermittent fasting, cycling in and out of the fenbendazole. And I mean, it still gives me kind of chills to think about. So I walked into my doctor's office in Houston, Texas, and they treat you in like teams there. So I had like 5 people on your team. You'd have like a nurse and your main doctor and the oncology guys and the radiology guys and all of that. And I walk in and everybody's in the room. First time I'd ever see them all in the same place at the same time. I mean, I immediately started thinking the worst. I'm like, oh, this is bad. So I'm not even going to sit down. Just tell me what the deal is. And they had the results of the most recent biopsy and a whole bunch of blood work and some scans and some other stuff. And my main guy stood up and just almost tears in his eyes and said, "You have no evidence of disease in your body." I'm like,
Wow.
what? I mean, I couldn't even understand it. I thought, what?
Can you imagine? Can you even imagine what this man must have felt like, you know, going in thinking this is it? I see all these people here. I'm going to have more surgery. They're telling me probably that my life is over. And then guess what? It's gone. It's all gone. It is absolutely, you know, some people will say, oh, well, it was a miracle. I mean, yes, it's a miracle that these ingredients are available to us and that somehow the word is spreading that you have alternatives to radiation and chemotherapy. I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble on social media for talking about these things. I don't even know if you'll be able to see the show later because I know they're going to take it down. I was thinking earlier, the more I talk about this stuff, I'm going to either have to figure out either to do it on a separate show entirely and have it like maybe on only Telegram or only on Rumble and talk about the other stuff here, because I'll tell you, they don't like you talking about this stuff. They don't like it. And which is kind of funny today because Mark Zuckerberg is at the White House meeting with Donald Trump, trying to get this lawsuit dropped against him for the censorship, yet they continue to censor and they will continue to censor us. I wanted to read you this story. This woman, her name is Marianne Chambers, and she shared this story on social media. I think she shared it quite a few times. And she had a C word that had metastasized to her breast. I don't know where it started exactly, but it ended up metastasizing to her breast, to her pelvic lymph nodes, and to her pancreas. And, you know, once something gets to the pancreas, it's a pretty serious situation. There's not a lot of medical intervention, you know, that can help things there. However, there certainly is some type of intervention. So this is what she did. They told her when she went to her doctor appointment, she had 3 months to live. That was it. 3 months to live. They told her that her C was very aggressive, that if she didn't get her radiation and chemotherapy, she wasn't going to make it, blah, blah, blah. Well, she decided, you know what? I'm not going to go that route. That's not what I want to do. It's not what's right for me. So this is what she did. So she said she ordered her Fenben from Amazon because she had an aggressive form of C. She got the 4441 instead of the 222. That's important to remember, the 444 of the Fenben. And she said it worked best for her. She got her ivermectin pills, she said, or she decided to use paste. She said she ordered the pills, decided to use the paste. But here's what's interesting, and I've never heard this before, and I consider myself to be the ivermectin queen. I have like a lifetime supply of it here at the house and have for a very long time. And I haven't used it in a long time, so maybe that's why things kind of went downhill for me. But so So she decided to get the paste. She couldn't stand the taste of it. So get this, she took it, she put it on a swab and put it in her belly button. And she said that's just as effective. I had no idea, never heard this before, but it makes sense because that's what you do with animals. If I wanted to go out and put some ivermectin on my chickens, I would just put it under their wings. And because your body absorbs it. And I thought that was a really interesting thing because so many people don't like the taste. So think about that. And that's exactly what she did. She used it, the ivermectin, every other day by rubbing a click of it, within her navel, within her belly button. She took 1 tablespoon of black seed oil every day. She ate 3 apricot seeds each day, 1 with each meal. But she was told she could take up to 8, but she only did 3 apricot seeds. And she said that where her tumors were located, she took castor oil. Look at you, Robert. You just mentioned castor oil. Well, where her tumors were located, she took a pad of castor oil and taped it to her body and left it there all night while she slept because she said the castor oil will break down any type of tumorous growth. She did that every night from April through December. And then she drank lemon water. She said at least 4 12-ounce glasses of lemon water a day because it helps to alkalize. I don't know why I can never say that word, the body. She bought soursop. Soursop, by the way, she bought the soursop tea. Soursop is a fruit, and it's grown in the Caribbean and in some other more tropical climates. And it has so many incredible health benefits. So many. We're going to be talking more about soursop. She decided to go with the tea. So she bought it off Amazon. Nothing crazy. She got some soursop tea off of Amazon. She drank that twice a day. She said it was actually very pleasant. She used 1 gram, which is 1 packet of Panacer C. She said that was taken. She did that 7 days a week, every single day. 1 gram, 1 packet of Panacer, which is Panacerc. And then she said that she also took, sorry, I lost my place, the Fenben. So she used the 444 Fenben, and she also used that every day of the week. She took it with 1 meal, each day of the week. She used 2 600 milligram tablets of curcumin, which is the same as turmeric, per day. So 2 600 milligram tablets per day. And she said that increases the P53 levels in the body. She took 25 milligrams of CBD oil every day through a dropper. It was liquid. And she said the dropper was graduated, which she said allowed for her to have easy dosing. She put it sublingually underneath the tongue and let it absorb. She took berberine. Berberine helps, she said, it helps to starve and weaken the cancer cells. And she took that 2 to 3 times a day. And what's interesting about berberine, if anyone's familiar with semaglutide was originally berberine, which they synthesized to some degree along with some Gila monster liquids like venom, and they synthesized that to make semaglutide. So that actually makes sense. Of course, I know I'm terrible at pronouncing some of these words. Quercetin, I hope that's right. It's an anti-inflammation agent and recommended to be taken 1 time a day. She took vitamin E. Now, she took vitamin E between 400 and 800 milligrams per day, 7 days a week. Between April and December, stage 4, given 3 months to live. That was her protocol. I'm going to type all that out, and I cannot share it on Facebook. They're not going to let me do that. I will figure out how to get it to you guys. Message me. You can message me on Facebook. I will be checking my messages. I know I'm kind of bad about doing that, but I will. And if you want these protocols, I'll send them to you. And so that's what she did between April and December, completely gone. Got a free health report. She's been healthy ever since, never a problem. Isn't that insane? Told she had 3 months to live. This is the route she took, and it helped her. I'm not going to say it's going to help everybody. I'm not a doctor, not a medical expert. I'm only reading what other people have done. I've got 1 more to read. I know I'm running way over my time, but it's a podcast. I mean, there really is no time. And Robert, apricot seeds are also called B17 and or laetrile. Pam, you need to tell your daughter-in-law all of this. Yes, Pam, you absolutely do. And let's see here. No, you don't have to write it down. I will send it to you. I don't expect anybody to be writing this down. I will make sure you have it and available. And then Robert, P17 oregano oil. I've heard oregano oil. Yes, antifungal, absolutely great stuff. Stacy says, I currently know 4 people with the C right now. 2 of them are children. Oh, that's so sad. and then 2 are terminal. And I want the protocols. I will absolutely give all of you guys the protocols if you want them. And it is, Mike, it is a lot to take, but I guess, when it comes down to I want to live, or do I want to take all this stuff every day? I would definitely choose taking all this stuff every day. But here's the thing, you take all this stuff every day, but we should be doing it anyway. Why wait until you have something wrong with you? It's healthy. It's better for you. You're not going to be sick from doing this. You're going to be healthier. And she didn't mention intermittent fasting or anything like that, but that's what a lot of people are doing. And by the way, the soursop, I wanted to jump in about the soursop, and I'm going to read this to you directly, but the soursop, the health benefits, and this is a fruit. Again, it's a fruit. They say it kind of tastes like a combination of strawberry, banana, and citrus. If you eat the actual fruit, most people use the tea. They said it suppresses the C, it supports eye health, it relieves inflammation, it manages diabetes, promotes health within the digestive tract, kills parasites, relieves pain, reduces stress, relieves respiratory ailments, promotes liver health, and it boosts immunity. That's soursop. Trust me, you'll find an endless supply of soursop. I just always tell people that anytime you're looking on any source to buy something, please do your homework and check it out. Don't listen to me. I'm not a medical doctor. Like I said the other day, I'm not even qualified to change somebody's bedpan. Not my deal. I'm just somebody who's dealing with some health issues right now, and I'm learning as much as I can because I plan on doing all of these things. Why wait? Not waiting for my biopsy. I already know, what my PET scan said and what they told me they think I have. I already know. Why wait until I get a biopsy just so they can tell me something that I probably already know? Not waiting. Definitely not waiting. So something else, here's another protocol. Now, this is a completely different person. They're talking about their story in 2003. And I'm going to read you this person's story. They said, I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in August 2023. And without treatment, I had 3 to 6 months to sort out my affairs. I began fenbendazole protocol immediately. I nearly quit since the quality of life had deteriorated so dramatically, but I started to feel better. Less nausea. I gained weight, increased energy. And then my scan in November 2023 indicated that this severe C word had neither grown or spread. My marker dropped from over 100,000 to 35,000. As of January 2024, my new marker number was 18,000, which is amazing. That does seem like a miracle. Going from 2023, August of 2023 through December of 2024, or January of 2024. And then they said, let's see here. Their doctors were bewildered. It says, I was terrified. My doctor would drop me as a patient. I was quite appreciative for Fenben and how it was helping me. I feel better, stronger. My scans, my blood work that were done in March of 2024 are now down to 6,000. That's unbelievable. And the tumors were shrinking. 2 weeks after my previous scan, I scanned again and it was gone. So here's this person's protocol, a little bit different. They're taking, but different, but similar, They're taking, in the morning, they have a morning program and they have an evening program, this person does. They're taking 600 milligrams of curcumin, 50 milligrams of zinc, 15 to 30 drops, 2 to 3 times a day. They put it in juice or water of milk thistle. I used to read a lot about milk thistle back in the day. Now I have no idea what this is. Serapeptase. They're taking 120,000 IUs of serapeptase. Fenbendazole, 1,000 milligrams, and they're taking Pancur C as advised to be taken 7 days a week. And they advise to take that with your food. And then they have they're also taking ivermectin, 12 milligrams a day, 5 or 7 days a week. They said limit sugar and processed food intake. They drink a lot of green tea. And so that is their protocol. And I thought that was pretty interesting protocol to have because there's a part of this missing. I'm going to go back and find it because I don't want to tell you the wrong stuff here. Okay, here's their nighttime. I'm like, I saw the daytime routine. I knew there was a day and a night. So their nighttime routine was more curcumin, 600 milligram tablet at night, berberine, 600 milligram, 2 to 3 times a day of berberine, quercetin, same thing, 500 milligrams once a day, turkey tail. I don't have a faintest clue what turkey tail is. I guess we need to look that one up. Vitamin E, 800 milligrams for 7 days a week. Fenben, 1,000 milligrams at night. And that is their daytime and their nighttime protocol. And again, if any of you, want this, I'll certainly share it with you. I know that's a lot of information to go over, a lot of things to process, a lot of ingredients. I plan on buying them all. I'm going to buy all of them. And you know what? I'm not telling you what to do or what you should do. I don't have any degree in any type of medical knowledge to tell you what to do. All I can tell you is to research it, look it up. There's plenty of stories out there. Do your research on every single individual ingredient and see how it works best for you. There's probably a lot of other things out there too that also work. Robert says milk thistle is for liver cleanse. That makes sense. Mike says my dad has stage 3 colon cancer. Oh my gosh, Mike. Many prayers to your dad. Chemo did nothing for him. I am trying to convince him and his girlfriend for him to take ivermectin and fenbendazole. I couldn't agree more. It's hard. My own father my biological father has prostate cancer, and it spread, I think, to his bladder, and he just had some heart surgery. He's got a lot going on, for him. And I've not mentioned any of these things to him. Maybe I'll mention it to his wife. He and I don't really talk a lot, but maybe that's something that I can share with his family, that if of course they want him to stick around a little bit, maybe they should look into these other treatments and maybe that will help. You know what I think is that, you don't know. You just don't know. Pam says, I have heard about almost all of it, just never knew how much. You know what, Pam, that's exactly the same thing for me. Is I've heard of most of these ingredients. I haven't heard them all, but I've heard of most of these things. I had never heard of soursop. Some of the ingredients I just listed, I haven't heard of all of them, but I would never know where to start. So these are programs coming from people who did it. You can go back, you can read their stories. They're real people. And so I take that to heart a little bit better. And, it's like, why wait? Why wait? Why not start now and get your body in order? And that goes, to say with intermittent fasting. And, they say that if you follow a low carb diet, if you follow a carnivore type diet, and it's not for everyone, talk to your doctor first before you, start any kind of health plan or change in your regular diet. But it starves the cancer cells. Why? Because it starves the parasites. If the parasites don't have anything to feed on, then guess what? They're going to die. They're going to wither away. They're going to leave and exit your body. And so we have to start thinking about these things. I know it's the only thing on my mind right now is to try to get healthier without having to go through any potential kind of craziness if my test doesn't go the way I want it to. Now, I had good news on my thyroid test. I mean, somewhat good news. There is something there with hypermetabolic activity, but it's so small that right now there's nothing, that can be done. But down the road, who knows? It's like, why wait? And then, of course, I'm still trying to get the biopsy. They haven't even ordered it yet on my lymph node, which, by the way, is almost 3 centimeters big, which is insane in itself. But what is it? I don't want to think about it like they said, some kind of parasite sac. I don't think that's what it is. But gosh, these days, who knows, quite honestly. But I'm going to be working on my sourdough starter. And we don't have a whole lot of time left because I have to get to work and it's really running late. Stacy says, Dr. Naputi has a protocol. Yes, I agree that I'm sure he does, as does probably Dr. Molly James and a lot of other people, Dr. Artis. But the thing is that, you could go online and find these protocols and you can go and buy. People don't want to spend a lot of money to get a protocol. And I'm not saying any of these doctors charge a lot of money for their protocol. They might give it away for free, for all I know. But it's so easy to go out and do research these days and find these different protocols that real people have used who've dealt with these situations, and the same thing. People keep telling me, well, I can't start these protocols because I have to have bread. I live on bread. And I'm like, I get it. I totally get it. Everybody likes bread. But, there is a little bit of a workaround around that. If you're going to eat bread, at least eat sourdough bread. So what I'm going to be doing this weekend, hopefully you guys will jump into Peggy. I don't know if Peggy's listening today, but Peggy had jumped in and told me that you make sourdough already. She already has some sourdough starter. A lot of you probably do. I don't. And Robert says centimeters or millimeters? No, centimeters. It is almost a 3 centimeter big lymph node right here in my chest. So it's pretty big. Can't get a whole lot bigger, quite honestly. So we'll see how that turns out. Thankfully, there's only one lymph node involved. It was a giant hotspot metabolic activity that showed either malignancy or metastasis. So I've been going through all these tests trying to figure out, well, where did it start? Because it's got to start somewhere. So now we've just got to get the biopsy done, which they were supposed to order like on an emergency basis, but haven't done it yet. So we'll get to that. But anyway, if you want to do your sourdough starter, which is what I'm going to do, I know I'm kind of rushing through this because I have to get to work. I'm actually 19 minutes late right now, but I think it's important to talk about some of these things. And that is, here's your ingredients. Now, I'll be posting about this on social media. A lot of you already know how to do sourdough starter. You don't have to listen to me if you've got better things to do right now, because you can easily look it up. Now, I love King Arthur flour, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to go, you want to get a jar or some type of container that's big enough, because you've got to think that this is going to expand. You don't want to get it so big where it's not going to fit in your refrigerator, but you want to make sure it's big enough to where it can expand, because it will expand over, so many days time. Right now, I'm only going to tell you about your first 2 steps, and then the rest of it is easy enough to look up. And so this is how you start. Now I'm going to use King Arthur whole wheat flour. I already have some. I am going to have to get a better jar. I've got a jar, but it's too big to fit in my refrigerator. I wasn't thinking that out thoroughly enough, so I'm going to have to find another one. You begin with 1 cup of King Arthur whole wheat flour. It comes out to 113 grams. Whole wheat flour. 1/2 cup of cool water. It's best if if the temperature in your room is 70 degrees. But you can go out there and find tips if your house happens to be a little bit colder. My house is probably colder than 70 degrees. And so what you're going to do is to feed your sourdough starter, to start it out, you're going to use your 1 cup of flour, whole wheat flour, and your 1/2 cup of cool water, and you're going to stir that to where there's no dry particles left, to where it's completely liquid, no dry particles left. It's going to be thick. Stir it up together. And then to feed your sourdough, this is what you're going to be feeding it. Another 1 cup of unbleached all-purpose flour. So you're only using your whole wheat flour. You can use pumpernickel and other flours too, but you're only going to be using that whole wheat flour when you first mix your starter together, the very first step. Otherwise, you're going to use all-purpose flour. So when you feed your starter, you're going to use 1 cup, another 113 grams of all-purpose flour with another 1/2 cup, and with liquids, also 113 grams of water. Now, I will be measuring mine by the gram, not by the cup. And just because I have a scale that's easier to measure by the gram, and I think it's more scientific when you're making a starter to use the grams versus a cup. And yes, and Tammy says they make sourdough kits, bowls and equipment on Amazon. I have seen those. I'm not going to probably buy one, but I have seen those. And so then on day 1, you're going to combine your whole wheat flour with your cool water in a non-reactive container. That could be glass, crockery, stainless steel, food grade plastic. All of these things work fine. As they state here, make sure your container is large enough not only to hold your, sourdough starter when you're first starting out, but as it continues to grow. And they recommend at least a 1 quart capacity. I bought one that's like 2 quarts. I'm like, this is not going to fit in my refrigerator. I should have looked it up first. You stir everything together thoroughly. Make sure there's no dry flour anywhere. Cover your container loosely. Let the mixture sit at warm room temperature. Again, about 70 degrees. And there are some tips out there you can find if your room's colder. You let it sit for 24 hours. 24 hours. Day 2, it says you may or may not see activity on day 2. And it probably has a lot to do with the temperature, whether you do or don't. And it says it may or may not be bubbling. Either way, it says you discard half of the starter. So take half of it out, which is about 1/2 cup or 113 grams. If you keep that 113 grams in your head, it'll make it a lot easier. So take out that 113 grams. And then add to it 1 cup of all-purpose flour and a 1/2 cup, again, 113 grams all-purpose flour, 113 grams or 1/2 cup of cool water. Stir that together, though. That's how you're feeding it on that second day. And, the rest of it you can look up. You just continue this process of feeding. At one point, you start feeding it twice a day. Then when you get to where you need to be, you stick it in your refrigerator, and then you just feed it once a week or more if if you choose to. So I think that's pretty interesting. Tammy said I had to give up on the sourdough because it just didn't work for me. It probably isn't going to work for me either. I'm just going to tell you now, it's probably not going to work for me either. But your neighbor, has had such great success with hers. I do bake my own bread sometimes, and I try to stay away from bread, but I do bake bread when I can. And I do it a couple different ways. I've made bread before putting in a crock pot. I've got a bread machine. I've made it in the bread machine as well. I still think that home baked bread, even if it's just regular bread, is 1,000 times better than any of that stuff you're buying at the store, unless it's that Ezekiel bread, which I think is exceptionally healthy. Robert says, let's see, causes calcium buildup, which they call a nodule. Mine was from a cracked rib. Yeah, mine is a lymph node, but it could have something else involved. Mine doesn't show any type of calcium or what do they call that? There's a word for it that they look for when it comes to lymph nodes and nodules. I can't think of what that word is, but it is something similar to like calcium, and that something has happened to it. Mine has not done that. And so Tammy says, let's see here. Oh yeah, they make the sourdough kits, the bowls, equipment, and so on. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to buy a kit just because I want to do it this weekend. I don't have time to wait. Otherwise, if I would have thought ahead of time, I certainly would have. But you can use sourdough for so many different things. It's not just bread. You can make pasta. You can make crackers. There are so many things you can take sourdough. There's so many recipes online for different things you can do with sourdough. And if you want to get healthy and you want to follow some of these protocols, you got to go all the way. It's do your best. But for me, let's just say I've got to go all the way. So I'm going to be working on my sourdough. I'm going to replace anything I would normally use that would be like a bread type, consistency with anything sourdough. And if I can't make it with sourdough, then guess what? I'm just not going to have it at all. And that is because it doesn't increase your glucose in quite the same way. The parasites don't like the sourdough bread like they like the regular bread. So those are some things to think about. I have to run because I have got to get to work before I get in trouble. Stacy, oh, thank you, Stacy. And I appreciate that. We can do to try to get a little bit healthier, try to work things out for ourselves, our families, and the people around us. And this is all new to me. I've been very familiar with ivermectin. I've got a whole drawer of it, but some of this other stuff is very new to me. So you will see if I seem healthier, look healthier, get some good doctor reports, I guess we'll know it's working, because I'm going to be deep diving into all this stuff. And of course, we'll be sharing that journey here because that's what a podcast is about. But news is our focus, always will be our focus. But we're going to talk about some health stuff too, and some gardening. I've got lots of gardening to do this weekend. Hopefully the weather settles down so I can put my new greenhouse up, because right now it's just been too crazy out there. And Vernon, I put beer instead of water in my bread. Don't do it. It didn't work. That's so funny, Vernon. Yeah, do not put beer in your bread. There is a beer bread, but it's not going to make your bread sourdough, but it's probably a good try. Well, I hope you guys have a really great weekend. Thank you for your support, for hanging in there with me throughout my craziness. But we will talk about this a whole lot more. If you want these protocols, send me a message on Facebook or X or wherever. I'll be looking for them. I'm going to share this on Telegram. By the way, my Telegram, it's under Tabs on Tap is my Telegram channel, or you might find it under my own name, or X. I'll be able to share it on X. So I'm going to go share it on X today. That's another easy place to see it. Will not be on Facebook because they will ban me. They're probably going to ban the show just talking about it. But we're going to do our best to get those protocols out to you all and then do your own research. Hope you guys have a really fantastic weekend. I will look forward to being back on Monday. And thank you, Pam. I'm going to need all the luck I can get with my sourdough bread because it's probably not going to work out. I'm probably going to have to hope one of you guys' works out so I can buy it from you, because mine probably is going to be a big failure. But you know what? All we can do is try. Well, have a great weekend, everyone. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. We'll see you all on Monday.